this is probably one of the darkest comics I've ever read. Like, do you guys remember when Absolute Bane beat the crap out of Batman? That's nothing compared to what Bane did to his friends. Like, it's bonkers. Okay, so what this does is this opens up with Batman and Absolute Killer Croc, right? Keeping in mind that Batman had basically rescued Waylon Jones while he was on the island, but not before Waylon Jones was transformed into essentially Killer Croc. And so initially, because of the fact that they were such close friends at some point, Waylon Jones is just like, you need to save me, right? Like, I saved you, now you save me. And initially, Batman takes this to mean, like, we'll find a cure, we'll figure out a way to fix you. The response of Waylon is, no, that's not what I'm talking about, right? The hunger, Bruce, it hurts too much. Save me, right? It's not save me, it's end me. And initially, Batman's just kind of like, you know, like he doesn't know how to handle it. Now, of course, at that point, Waylon Jones is just like, do it, right? Like, I mean, end me. Like, I do not want to suffer anymore. But Bruce can't bring himself to do it, right? He can't bring himself to end his friend. And the response of Waylon is like, well, if you won't, I will. And he goes to take the dagger out of Batman's hand, right? And of course, Batman kicks it out of his hand. He's like, that's not going to happen. Waylon Jones roars like crazy, right? I mean, he's pissed off to no end. And then he just says, I should have left you in that place, and takes off, right? So here's the crazy thing, is that this is not going to be the first time that Bruce has to go through this. His friends blaming him for everything that happened, because now he's starting to come to the reality of exactly what it was that he had done. And so what you end up doing is you pick up with himself and Selina Kyle as they're basically exploring a kind of new apartment for themselves. Now, this is a flashback, right? Hence the reason why it looks the way it does. But it's kind of a romantic moment between the two, right? The idea that they're essentially starting a life together, right? The landlord says that the first of the month is due on signing, and then as long as the details checked out, that they're both good to go, right? There's no pets, no cats, anything like that. And so it's kind of like, okay, cool, right? We'll take it, right? That's the immediate response. The funny thing about this is that Selina Kyle knows Bruce Wayne well enough to know when he's hiding something, when he's not really talking about what it is that he's bothering him. And she figures that out pretty quickly. So she's like, reveal it, like, what's going on? And they're talking about the fight between Waylon Jones and Bibbo Babowski, right? That was the whole thing that Bruce was kind of helping him out with when they were younger, that Waylon Jones had a crisis of confidence. He didn't really know if he could win the boxing match, but these little tidbits are exceedingly important because they kind of help to build up the relationships between all these various characters. And one of the cool things about this, right, that when he's talking to Selina, he says it's Waylon, right? I don't know what to do. And she says, like, did you tell him the truth? And he says he's not going to listen, right? I know him. He really believes that he can win. And so the response of Selina, then help him, right? And Bruce is like, how? And it's one of the most important pieces of advice that she gives him, right? The same way we got this spot. If the rules aren't fair, stop playing by them. Make up your own set of rules. And that's kind of a true statement. At the end of the day, no one really cares how you win. On paper, they care, but in the real world, no one really cares how you win, so long as you win. And so what you end up doing is you pick up with Bruce Wayne in the aftermath of him recovering from everything with Killer Croc and all that kind of stuff, because keep in mind, there were the whole surgical enhancements that were done, all kinds of things that had happened. The guy had almost no sleep whatsoever. And so what he finds out in talking to Alfred is when he asks, how long have I been out? Alfred says, it's been 20 days since I found you collapsed on the floor of this place. And he's like, 20 days, right? And that's where Alfred's like, yeah, right? And you need a hell of a lot more. The things they did to your body, I'm not even sure that you fully comprehend. He says, there's a delivery system woven into your spine and brain, all loaded with that compound venom. And there's no telling what it could do to you. But of course, Bruce Wayne being Bruce Wayne is like dismissive of it all, right? He's like, I'm fine. But here's the important thing that Alfred tells him. He says, no, right? You need to hear this. What you did, things have changed now, right? You're in it. Do you understand? But again, Bruce isn't really picking up on everything that Alfred's saying. So he's kind of dismissive yet again, right? He says, I get it. Now I'm going to need you to move, and just kind of goes out there. Now the venom kind of starts working through his system, but it's not this huge crushing type of thing, right? It's not like he just amps up in the same way that Bane does. Instead, it just kind of momentarily bothers him, for lack of a better word. Headaches, if you want to call it that. But then he goes back home, and the first person he sees is his mom. And Mama Bear's pissed, right? She is 8 kinds of pissed off, right? She's pissed as she's worried. 1, because she thought something happened to him, right? But 2, she's glad to see that he's alive, right? Because one thing you never do is piss off Mama Bear. And she literally says, right, I was so scared of getting that phone call again every time it rang. And then with what happened to Ozzy, and that's where Bruce starts starts to find out Bane went after his friends. Now, we already knew that, right? We knew that from the last issue that we covered of Absolute Batman, where we got the origin story of Bane, right? The origin of Bane kind of coincided with what he was doing in that moment, which was going after Batman's friends. We didn't find out what he did, but we're going to find out here, because what ends up happening is Batman goes to the hospital to visit Oswald Cobblepot, right? One of his closest friends. And he tells Commissioner Gordon, I'm glad he kept an eye out for my mom, like I really appreciate it. And Gordon even tells him, he says, your family, son. And the truth is, looking at you, if I was still commissioner, I'd arrest you before I let you walk out of this place without a doctor checking you out. But, and that's again where it kind of steps in. I'm seeing as I'm commissioner now, right? I'm going to do you a favor here, Wayne, out of respect for Jimmy. So they give him 5 minutes to go in and visit. But here's a crazy thing. Dr. Leslie Tompkins tells him, right? She's like, did anyone explain, right? And he just says, just let me see him. And she's like, but I have to warn you, Bruce, I've never seen anything like it. And Oswald is just crumpled down to virtually nothing. He's like a wadded up human piece of paper. And that's where she just says, whoever did this, right, is an abomination. And here's the crazy thing. When Bane shows up here and meets his friends, the response of Oswald, right, like, who the hell are you supposed to be? And Bane just grabs him, right? And he just says, you want so badly to be big, don't you, right? The pink gym raw muscles, the lifts in your shoes. And that's where Leslie kind of fills him in on what happened to Oswald. She says, whoever did this, they broke nearly every bone in Oswald's body, some in multiple places, but somehow they did it in a way that missed each vital organ. It was precise, surgical, cruel beyond measure. If Oswald lives, he'll be almost 2 feet shorter, and his hands and his feet, it'll be hard, Bruce, a life of constant pain. And so that's how Oswald becomes the Penguin. Instead of being born with this disfigurement, he's literally crushed by Bane's bare hands into a 2 foot shorter version of himself. And that's where Bruce is like, I'll just do whatever I can, right? Like, we all will. Has Harvey come by? And that's where Dr. Tompkins is like, did they not tell you what happened to Harvey Dent? Right? And he's like, what happened to Harvey Dent? And she's like, he's in the next room. Now, here's the most crushing thing for Harvey Dent. Right? She says it's bad, Bruce, right? 3rd to 4th degree burns across the left side of his body, straight 50%. But what's worse, they crushed his skull, cracked it down the center. When the police found him, his head was basically laying in 2 separate parts. And that's where he just kind of says the name Flass, right? And Bruce goes to greet him, and then he absolutely gets torn apart by Harvey, because Harvey asks, do you remember that one truant cop when we were kids, Bruce? Flass, right? Always one step ahead, no matter how stealthy we tried to be. And when he caught you, he got that look, right? Like, I see you. Do you remember that guy? And Bruce says, of course, I remember. And he says, like he knew all the crap that you were hiding. And me. He had this special hate for me. You're fooling yourself, he'd say. He says, you stick with these losers, they'll bring you down hard. Flass would always say. He was right, right? He was right. Because what happened is Bane crushed this guy. And the way that Bane does it is kind of insane. Once he snatches up Harvey, he says, let me guess, right? The big brother of the little group, the protector. And yet you're also destined to be the traitor, because your friends, they're all outlaws. And you, with your principles, your ambition, those eyes, you established this ritual long ago, didn't you? This poker game, a safe place where the stakes are void, where you can be both forever. Outlaw and lawman, friend and enemy, a microcosm, gambling for plastic coins, all pretend. And he says, but the time for pretending is over. And that's where he had grabbed him, put his face down into the alcohol, and threw a match on the ground and set half his face on fire. And so that's where you kind of jump back to Harvey, right? Talking to him. And Harvey says, I heard that he's retired somewhere, right? Flass, Metropolis, Gateway City. I should probably look him up. And where Bruce tries to apologize, he says, it's all my fault. The response of Harvey, yes. Yes, it is. You gambled for real, Bruce. You put it all out there. Your friends, your city, everything, all the chips. Now get out of here. And if it's any consolation, I only hate you half the time. So it's one of the most crushing things to know that you set your friends on this path, but it's even more crushing to find out that your friends hate you for it. They recognize the fact that Bruce did this to them. And that's kind of the crazy thing here, is because at that point, Bruce goes goes to visit Eddie, right? He goes to see Edward Nygma. And when he sees him just kind of sitting there at a computer, he's like, okay, cool. Like, you're okay, right? Everything's fine. Like, I thought that you may have been hurt too. But the response of Nygma, who got the worst of it all, he says, no, he didn't hurt me. In fact, he was very gentlemanly, right? He challenged me to a friendly battle of wits. He said that if I won, he'd let me kill him. He even handed me his gun. Can you believe it? And so he says, Bane told me, right? I'll bet you like riddles. And so Bruce asks, right, like, what did you do? And the response of Nygma, he says, it only took Bane a minute to beat me. And before I knew it, he was shaking my head, slamming the front of my brain into my skull. The frontal lobe, the part responsible for intelligence, just bang, right? It was absolutely wild, Bruce, like bang. And then suddenly facts became questions everywhere. And so he says, no, Bruce, he didn't hurt me at all. He helped me. He was challenging me. Maybe he was challenging all of us to become more, become what we were meant to be, because his whole head has basically just been replaced with machinery now. Even his physical brain is sticking out of the back of this makeshift helmet. And that's a crazy thing, because in that moment, the venom kind of starts running its course again. And that's where Nygma tells Bruce, right? It looks like he challenged you too. So riddle me this. What are you going to do about it? And that's the crazy thing, because at that point, you jump to the past. I told you guys, this comic is insanity. Only from Scott Snyder can you imagine stuff like this, especially after he wrote Witches. Yeah, if you ever read Witches, you could easily see where he would come up with something like this. We should cover Witches. That story's bonkers. But at that point, you jump to the past, right? Specifically, when you have Bruce and Selina in them who go and meet with Carmine Falcone, or Falcone, as I like to call him. And initially, he's just kind of like, okay, so I know who you are, right? You're Waylon Jones' trainer, aren't you, right? Like, let me guess. You want Bibbo to go easy on your boy, or maybe you're looking to cash out altogether. And he says, I guess Croc's less of a crocodile and more of a crock of crap. And that's where Bruce is just like, what's in the bag is a gesture, right? Some of the finest gold work in the city. And initially Falcone's just like, I mean, how do I even know it's real? And the response of Bruce, maybe because it's yours, stolen from apartments you own. And initially Falcone's just kind of like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we're not looking to cash out, we're looking to raise. And so what this is designed to do is to illustrate the fact that over the course of Bruce's life, he's always had this just kind of reckless attitude, always willing to up the ante, to do whatever it takes to make sure he wins, because the consequences were never really anything significant for him. It never really hurt him. The problem was always just over there. And if the problem is over there, then the problem might as well not exist, because you don't have to see it or deal with it on a regular basis. But now it came to a head. Now the problems are real, and his actions have direct consequences for the people that are closest to him. And so that's where you pick up with Bruce Wayne back in the Batcave, and he just tells the Red Hood gang, stand down, right? He's like, I mean, it's all off. Everything is done. And that's where the Red Hood gang initially tries to interrupt, but Bruce ends the phone call. And then Gordon just asks the question, like, what's that about? And Bruce just comes clean with it all, right? Just kind of has this bit of a breakdown where he says, you were right. When the Black Mask offered that deal, I didn't even consider it. Not really. I just really didn't see. And that's the important thing, is because at that point, Alfred's like, so that's it, right? You're just going to close down operations. And Bruce is like, he broke them, Pennyworth, my friends. He broke them all, right? And that's the important thing, is because Black Mask warned Bruce. You guys remember that story? You guys remember that moment when he warned him? He told him, you have no clue what's coming. If you destroy me, if you defeat me, you're going to hand the city over to something worse than me. They are going to send him after you. And when that happens, he will destroy everyone and everything that you know and love. And Bruce didn't want to listen. Bruce didn't want to hear that. It was the ravings of a bad guy. It was a dude who had no idea what he was talking about. But now Bruce is finding out consequences are a thing that exists. And so that's why at that point, Alfred says, yeah, he did, right? The question is, are you going to let him break you, right? He says, you chose this, Bruce, and I told you, you're in it now. Everything has changed, and there is no going back. There's only through, so get ready, because it's only going to get worse. And that's when you find out someone's breached the hatch. Someone's busted in. And the response of Pennyworth, it's Bane. right? Bane is coming for you, right? And so at that point, he's like, if he really wants a war so much, let's give it to him. So Alfred, it turns out, has a minigun. This dude has a minigun. He turns into Jesse Ventura from Predator, which is nuts because he's roaming the hallways with the biggest gun I've ever seen in my life, ready to spray down whatever poor soul gets in front of his face, which is probably the best you can do when it comes to someone like Bane. But then out of nowhere, this rope comes down, snatches Alfred, knocks him out. Batman turns around to see Alfred unconscious, and who's standing there? Absolute Catwoman. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. I told you guys, this story is crazy. Here's a crazy thing though. It's not even the craziest thing. Here's a crazy thing. Did you guys see the interview where Scott Snyder said Absolute Scarecrow is coming to the comics? And I gotta tell you, man, if you guys thought this was bad, Absolute Scarecrow is gonna be nightmare fuel like you and I have never seen. And I am so excited. Anyway, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.